Ladies and gentlemen, hello again. Max here, as usual. Thank you very much for jumping into this episode as well. Moving history forward, so to speak. Today we talk about chapter 5, 5.1 to be specific. World War II, the Untold Story, the hidden part of Hitler's legacy. This is a very, very intriguing chapter, chapter 5. The entirety of the story of World War II, how it unfolded, who was involved, what were the reasons behind it. Everything will be laid out in a shocking fashion, and there's a lot of information in this chapter that I'm sure many people are not aware of. So this will be fun. Before we proceed, as usual plug for the Amazon page where you can find the book, and the podcasts on YouTube, on Rumble, and of course on Brighteon. Please guys, give me likes, as many as you possibly can, so we can drive the channel forward and spread this information to as many people as possible, because that's the only reason we are here. Now, moving into the story. Now, dear listeners, what I'm about to lay out for you will be surprising to most, but it's necessary in order to have a full picture of events moving forward and also going back. I've heard many times during my study over time the following phrase: if they the historical depiction of World War II. Many will call me a Hitler apologist or a Holocaust denier or the usual white supremacist, Nazi, or any other jargon that comes to mind in these cases. I welcome the criticism, but as I said before, it's my book, it's my podcast, I get to say whatever I want. I am not, in fact, a Hitler apologist. I am not right or left-leaning in any way. I hate both sides with passion in equal measure. And I am certainly not a communist. I'm only describing what I have seen and understood, with no inclination for either side of the equation. So please remember that. I'm simply describing the true history that was never told in the history books we have read and have been spoon-fed as children as truth since we were young. I think I have proven abundantly so far that history as told is essentially a lie. So why would the complete story about World War II and Hitler be the only real one? Of course it's not. It would be ludicrous to think that. I'm going to tell you a story that I'm sure most of you have never heard, and it's 100% true and can be fact-checked if you apply your skills adequately. Point being, don't kill the messenger. Just listen to the message, please. So, here we go. Now, it's rather encouraging that in today's times we do have some very intelligent and well-spoken people that are starting to get a grip on things and exposing the lies we have been subjected to. We will start with this short clip between a wonderful young lady called Candace Owens and Tristan Tate. These are two podcasters and influencers of great importance in this day and age. Listen to what they have to say regarding World War II and Hitler in particular.
Question, yes. And you realize that they have taught us World War II history like we're children. Yes. I mean, it's everything they've told us. Virtually everything they told us is either not true or a snippet of the truth or omitting something that would make us question more of their narrative. And they freaked out when I shared a BBC documentary, no less, because they had tried to wipe this from the universe about how Germans were ethnically cleansed following World War II.
Yes.
So there was no war going on.
Yep.
Immediately after, they allowed Stalin's to just go in. And
Poland, Czechoslovakia, they just wiped them off the face of the map.
It's insane. And then to know that prior to World War II, there's a book written by a guy, last name Kaufman, I'm blanking on the first name, where he said it's Germany must perish.
Yeah.
Like they literally wanted to get rid of Anglo-Saxons. And so when you have that context and you're going, whoa, 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 why was I never told about this book, which was published in America, about like, he wrote a book about how they would have to just annihilate them, how they had to make them infertile, that they couldn't produce. And then you hear at the end of that war what was done to German-speaking civilians, and that should send a chill down your spine that you don't know it. That is what scares me, that we were never taught it, which means that we were specifically told an angle, and that angle has been protected for a very long time for a reason that must be evil, because lies can only be served to protect evil.
Yes, and I actually, and I'm going to get put in jail anyway, so I don't care. I'm going to speak my mind because you're here. So I actually realized this very, very early on. So I've always been a big history buff, and when I was 19, 20, 21, I was still traveling the world a little bit, and then I realized that every single country has their own version of World War II history. Every single country is different, even all the ones that we're supposed to agree with. Every country is different. France teaches that, the French resistance overthrew the Nazis and they never really surrendered because the French were still fighting and they won the war even though they surrendered. Poland obviously lost epically to both sides. However, the Polish are taught that it was the Polish men who stood up and blah, blah, blah. The Russian actually version of World War II is the most accurate that can be taught because they talk about all the major fighting and all the heavy lifting essentially to defeat the Germans was done by them and all the blood was spilled by them. They're kind of correct. But as a young man, when I was reading all these different versions of World War II history and what we were taught, you know what the Germans are taught? Do you know German World War II history if you're in school in Germany? German World War II history is as follows. Some evil people took over our country. Handful of people, wasn't us, very small handful of people took over our country, and the German resistance movement, along with the Allies, got rid of the evil people. So every country has a different history. And as a young man, I was like, well, this can't all be true. So that's when I started digging into it and understanding World War II history in a way that if I spoke it vocally in public and I had an audience, I'd get put in jail. But by all means, whatever country you're from, please look into this because it's different in every country for a reason, because it suits their particular narrative. So what's the actual truth? Right. The truth is none of the countries who won teach an accurate version of World War II history. None of the countries who won teach the actual reasons why the war happened. None of the countries who won teach the aftermath and, what happened because the war was won by the people who won. So it's a rabbit hole that you are digging up publicly, and I'll see you in jail.
Well, because it just takes one seed of doubt, and so for me, having watched the documentary, my jaw on the floor, even learning, and I think this is really why the press attacked me, that so many of the people who executed those crimes were then protected by the state of Israel.
Absolutely,
that's already an existential crisis for the allied union between Israel and America. If Americans start waking up and going, wait a second, why would you guys be protecting people who, Solomon Morel, who executed these crimes against Germans, and you refused to extradite him when they actually wanted to prosecute him for his crimes? That doesn't really make sense. We were told, like, you especially should have a reaction to people that are committing a genocide against people for no reason.
Surely.
Then you go, okay, well, that's weird. And so it takes, for me, that was a major seed that was planted. Like, why would you not tell me about what happened to the Germans? And then when my German friends were privately thanking me and saying my videos were going viral in Germany, and that not only were their ancestors slaughtered, murdered, or ethnically cleansed and pushed out, but they then passed speech laws. So they can never talk about it.
I know, ever.
Can you think about how scary that is?
Your
child being lined up and shot.
Yeah, they just put an 83-year-old woman in jail for questioning World War II history in Germany. I believe she's 83 or 93.
She's been in jail for a long time. She said she'll never repeat the lies.
She's in and out of jail, just like me, and she'll never apologize. And I said this on Twitter, on X. I said, nobody, no judge, no lawyer, no court, nobody should be allowed to prosecute this woman unless they're older than her, because you're taking people who have, it's like your child literally arguing with you about what you saw and how you lived in 1994, way before they were born. And I was like, well, isn't that wild that this woman was around in 1939, 1944? She was around, she saw things with her own eyes, and people who were born in the 1960s and 70s are sitting behind a desk with a book of what they're supposed to think about these events, saying this woman is wrong. I'm like, isn't that wild? Nobody who's younger than her should be allowed to even sit in that room and tell her that she has to go to jail for having her opinions, because she was literally an eyewitness to things. And yeah, incredibly scary. And you want to talk about, I mean, obviously, the people protected by the state of Israel. Look who was protected by the United States. Who was the first CEO essentially of NASA? Werner von Braun, the man who invented the V2 rocket, the man who invented this weapon of death that was obviously hit London a couple of times. He was the best rocket scientist in the world, but because he was a rocket scientist, okay, cool. You come to the United States. Oh, yeah, you're fine. Oh, you were just doing your rocket science, but we don't care that you were SS because we know you just needed the funding.
Yeah, and that should make people ask some questions. Like you're told that you went to go crush them, but then we
took them all. Everyone useful, was suddenly an American citizen. He's buried in the same graveyard as all the American war heroes and presidents, etc. And yeah, he's buried in a graveyard, I believe, in Washington D.C. alongside ex-presidents, war heroes, people who fought in the American Civil War. He's given a hero's burial, a hero's funeral, but he was an SS officer.
So that's a nice beginning to the chapter, isn't it? These people are awake and aware, and they know just like I do. I want to start this story with a clip of Hitler during a speech. This particular clip has been translated in real time in English, and they did a pretty good job actually. I want you to listen very carefully to his words. And then I will see you on the other side as we continue. Listen to this.
Für richtig hält's, ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin. In connection with the Jewish question, I have this to say. It is a shameful spectacle to see how the whole democratic world is oozing sympathy for the poor, tormented Jewish people, but remains hard-hearted and obdurate when it comes to helping them, which is surely, in view of its attitude, an obvious duty. The arguments that are brought up as an excuse for not helping them actually speak for us Germans and Italians. For this is what they say. 1, we, that is the democracies, are not in a position to take in the Jews. Yet in these empires there are not 10 people to the square kilometer, while Germany, with her 135 inhabitants to the square kilometer, is supposed to have room for them. 2, they assure us we cannot take them unless Germany is prepared to allow them a certain amount of capital to bring with them as immigrants. For hundreds of years, Germany was good enough to receive these elements, although they possessed nothing except infectious political and physical diseases. What they possess today, they have by a very large extent gained at the cost of the less astute German nation by the most reprehensible manipulations. Today, we are merely paying this people what it deserves. When the German nation was, thanks to the inflation instigated and carried through by Jews, deprived of the entire savings which it had accumulated in years of honest work, when the rest of the world took away the German nation's foreign investments, when we were divested of the whole of our colonial possessions, these philanthropic considerations evidently carried little noticeable weight with democratic statesmen. Today I can only assure these gentlemen that thanks to the brutal education with which the democracies favored us for 15 years, we are completely hardened to all attacks of sentiment. After more than 800,000 children of the nation had died of hunger and undernourishment at the close of the war, we witnessed almost 1 million head of milking cows being driven away from us in accordance with the cruel paragraphs of a dictate which the humane democratic apostles of the world forced upon us as a peace treaty. We witnessed over 1 million German prisoners of war being retained in confinement for no reason at all for a whole year after the war was ended. We witnessed over 1.5 million Germans being torn away from all that they possessed in the territories lying on our frontiers and being whipped out with practically only what they wore on their backs. We had to endure having millions of our fellow countrymen torn from us without their consent and without their being afforded the slightest possibility of existence. I could supplement these examples with dozens of the most cruel kind. For this reason, we ask to be spared all sentimental talk. The German nation does not wish its interests to be determined and controlled by any foreign nation, France to the French, England to the English, America to the Americans, and Germany to the Germans. We are resolved to prevent the settlement in our country of a strange people which was capable of snatching for itself all the leading positions in the land and to oust it. For it is our will to educate our own nation for these leading positions. We have hundreds of thousands of very intelligent children, of peasants and of the working classes.
Dear listener, it appears to me that we're listening to the words of a man who remembers his history, and above all, remembers the stab in the back that we read and discussed in the previous chapter. Now, Adolf Hitler was born on the 20th of April 1889 into a working-class family in Braunau am Inn, Austro-Hungary, close to the German border. He spent most of his adult life as a homeless drifter after his parents passed away. Getting rejected from art college in Vienna, he noticed that although he did not qualify for the college, many J students were. Many of these J students ended up in Berlin producing pornography and erotica for a living, as was so popular at the time. We spoke about this already. He volunteered to fight for Austria in 1914, and later for Germany, where he fought with great bravery and was promoted to Lance Corporal. He received the Military Cross, Iron Cross Second Class, Iron Cross First Class, and 6 medals for bravery. He was seriously wounded twice. In October 1916, he was badly wounded and was hospitalized for 2 months. He could have stayed home after that, but chose to join the battle lines again. In October 1918, he was temporarily blinded by a British poison gas attack. He heard of the capitulation of Germany during his hospital stay and was outraged by what he was told. He wanted answer to why so many of his fellow men had died in vain for a war that the nation never wanted in the first place. We spoke about this as well in the previous chapter, did we not? He joined the DAP, Workers' Party, in 1919. This party was a small nationalist group at the time. They decided the time was right to seize power in the local government in Munich. Patriotic veterans joined in and the party started moving against the national government in Berlin. They met at the local beer hall in Munich, and Hitler proved to be a very passionate and strong orator. He was igniting the crowds. His meetings went so well that they were openly fired upon by a group of communists that killed 16 of the members. Hitler and the others were arrested and tried for treason. During this trial, Hitler took the opportunity to spread his political and philosophical, hard word, ideas that apparently were so inspiring that even the local newspapers picked up on it. Hitler thus became a common name to the people. Even the judge himself was so impressed that he issued a more lenient sentence for him and his group. During his imprisonment of 1924, that I will show you here, he started writing down his own ideas and thoughts in the now famous book Mein Kampf, in English, My Struggle, that I have actually read. This is the Bible of National Socialism. His close associate, Rudolf Hess, typed up the dictation for the book, which was later published in 1925. The picture here from the prison is Hitler, Kriebel, Hess, and Weber in the Landensburg prison in 1924. Look what a scary bunch of people this is. Makes you laugh, doesn't it? Mein Kampf was part political manifesto, part autobiography, containing philosophical discussion and economical topics. In the book, he explains the world conspiracy for world government directed by J bankers. He also wrote about the loss of World War I, the Russian Revolution, and the effects of the Versailles Treaty, as we also discussed before. A man does not talk in these terms unless he has studied deeply said topics. He must have been read into the Jesuit order, the Masons, and the Protocols of Zion. He was pinpointing the Khazarian Mafia world order to the letter. This was in 1925, people. He spoke of the J corruption of German society, corruption of the arts and the education system, and the corruption of morality and culture of Europe. Mein Kampf quickly grew in popularity and quickly made Hitler a rather wealthy man. Fascinating side point. Hitler was not the only one speaking of J infiltration. The American industry magnate Henry Ford, yes, that Henry Ford, commissioned a study to evaluate J influence and infiltration into politics and banking in America at the time. And he published a book called The International Jew. I happen to have a copy of this book and I have read it in full. This book, which I showed to you here, he exposed exactly the same issues that Hitler pointed out in his book, the Khazarian Mafia plot to take over the world, and they were very well on their way. The two later became good friends and expressed mutual respect during the years to come. How come we never told about this, I wonder? Now on the screen you will see a screenshot to purchase the actual book. If you look at the prices, it seems someone is not so keen on its distribution. Look at those prices. I can't imagine why that is. Ford was of course later punished for this action by the Khazarian Mafia overlords, as per the following clip that I will show you here. Imagine what the world would be like if this never happened. Check this out.
Henry Ford, the visionary father of the modern auto industry, grew up on a farm outside of Detroit. Maybe that's why he designed his Model T to run on ethanol alcohol, a fuel made from corn. White lightning, moonshine. Ford's alcohol captured 25% of the fuel market in the Midwest. Now when he did that, red flags went up at Standard Oil. John D. Rockefeller, the founder of Standard Oil, started funding an amendment that would become known as Prohibition. That one law shut down all alcohol production in the U.S., including ethanol alcohol. For 12 of the 13 years of Prohibition, Ford continued to produce ethanol-compatible cars. And then he gave up. Henry Ford.
So how about that? Turns out that prohibition had nothing to do with helping the people or helping the public because they were drinking too much. It was to punish Henry Ford because of the writing of this particular book. He probably lost a lot of money in the process. I'm sure of that. Now moving on, Hitler revised the name of his party, making it NSDAP, National Socialist German Workers' Party, taking socialism without internationalism and nationalism without capitalism. The slogan of the party was that the greatest asset of the nation was its own people, and they all had to unite to save their own nation. The most obvious difference between the National Socialism and communism was that National Socialism supported the concept of private property and a market economy, while communism abolished private property and the government controlled the economy through central planning. That's a fact, we know that. In short, National Socialism was a radical movement in defense of Western civilization. Now I'll show you a print screen here of Hitler's definition of socialism, and I will read it to you. It goes as follows. A socialist is one who serves the common good without giving up his individuality or personality or the product of his own personal efficiency. Our adopted term socialist has nothing to do with Marxian socialism. Marxism is anti-property. True socialism is not. Marxism places no value on the individual or individual effort or efficiency. True socialism values the individual and encourages him in individual efficiency. At the same time, holding that his interests as an individual must be in consonance with those of the community. All great inventions, discoveries, achievements were first the product of an individual brain. It is charged against me that I am against property, that I'm an atheist. Both charges are false. Adolf Hitler, December 28, 1938. If words like this were spoken in today's day and age, I would believe that most people would agree with this concept. But no, this is spoken from a Nazi, the worst people on the planet. Are you starting to see it yet, dear listener? The National Socialists did not call themselves Nazis. The term Nazi, along with Nazism, is a political word invented in the 1920s by Conrad Hayden as propaganda against the NSDAP. He was a J journalist and a member of the competing party, the Social Democratic Party, also called SOSI. So we have SOSI and Nazi at the same time. Interesting. This is the same as what we would call today the Democrat Party Dems and the Republican Reps. There has never been anything called Nazi because they never refer to themselves as such. Hitler also designed the party flag and its logo, the notorious swastika, right? Everybody has seen that. We were taught in school that this is a symbol of doom. Well, it turns out that the swastika has been around for thousands of years in ancient civilization and was to symbolize goodness, consciousness, and well-being in general. We see it in temples all over the world still today. If you look at the right side of your screen, here you have all different civilizations using exactly the same symbol. You have the Sumers, you have Israel, you have Armenia, the Apache, the Aztecs. This is a symbol that has been used for millennia in the past. So it's really funny that when we look at this image on your screen today, this is supposed to be the symbol of doom. But this is what our elites has taught us in our history books. Completely false. Now, the German people at the time were in really, really bad shape. Depressed and beaten, hungry and jobless. The government was hopelessly in debt, and there was no clear path out of the predicament they found themselves in. There was no place to grow a family. In a situation like this, the National Socialists had a perfect breeding ground to grow, and grow fast. By means of general election, Hitler took over the leadership of Germany on January 30th, 1933. I will show you to end this funny chapter with two memes. As you know, I love memes as a means of communication. So I wanna have a laugh with you about this. What you see on your screen from Twitter, now known as X. A guy said, "Birthday message to Hitler. You're dead, and the Jews run the world. Ha ha ha. April 20th, 2019. The guy below replying, "But doesn't that just prove that he was right?" Makes you laugh, doesn't it? Because of course he was. The second one here is a monument in Germany somewhere, where it says, is written by Adolf Hitler, it says, "I am a socialist." Below we have Tom from Tom and Jerry cartoon with his head exploding, and he is a socialist. So they don't take these jokes very well, do they? I'd like to emphasize also the fact that in this day and age, everybody's being called a Nazi. Trump is a Nazi. Everybody who goes against the media's narratives is a Nazi or a white supremacist, or you name it. I find it absolutely hilarious, the ignorance of these people and the media in particular, calling people like Trump a Nazi when Trump is obviously standing on the right. Okay, the Nazis were socialists, so they were on the left, right? How can you call a right guy a Nazi? It doesn't work. Socialism is on the left. Fascism is on the right. So Mussolini was a fascist. Hitler was a Nazi. Those are two opposing mirrors. They have nothing to do with each other. So everybody calling anybody a Nazi today has to be really, really careful because they look ignorant and uninformed. Okay, I just thought I'd put that in there because it's important for context. So that's all for me in this episode. I hope to see you on the next one, where we continue our journey into World War II, chapter 5.2, where we describe the recovery. That's all for me today. Max out, and peace.